my talk is called Fiat Delenda Est, and I started that phrase 2 years ago at this conference, the last time Gary let me talk here. And that was the very last line of my talk. And my talk was about the moral case for Bitcoin, and I thought I would continue that because Fiat Delenda Est was the phrase that I said at the end of that one that I wanted to sort of continue to expound upon. So Fiat Delenda Est, what the heck does that mean? So let me explain. It comes from this phrase, and this phrase is working. All right, great. It comes from this phrase, Carthago delenda est, and what this means in Latin is Carthage must be destroyed. Carthage must be destroyed. And this phrase was uttered by this man, and this is Cato the Elder, and he was part of the Roman Senate. And at the end of every speech, he would say, Carthago delenda est. Carthage must be destroyed. Now, what was Carthage? Well, Carthage was the enemy of Rome. And you can see in this map where Carthage was. It was a city in North Africa, and they were expanding their empire at the same time that Rome was. And Cato knew that they would come to heads, and they needed to destroy Carthage before they could expand. And indeed, they did. They actually ended up conquering Carthage. They destroyed the city, and they were so bitter against the Carthaginians that they didn't just sack the city and just loot it or whatever. They completely reduced it to rubble. And they salted the earth around Carthage to make sure that it would never rise from the ashes, that nothing could grow near it. And this is why we don't know very much about Carthage, because the Romans utterly destroyed them. And if you study Roman history, there's a lot of intricate stuff that happened between them, a lot of wars. Many of you might know about Hannibal. He was a general in the Carthaginian army, and he brought elephants over the Alps to attack Rome from the direction that they didn't expect, and so on. But this is the history between these two places. And Cato knew that they needed to destroy Carthage before they could expand as an empire. And that's what I wanted to get in with this phrase, Fiat Delenda Est. Now, what does fiat mean? Well, we kind of know it in English, but here's where it actually comes from. And this is, again, Latin. Dixike Deus fiat lux et facta est lux. And that's Genesis 1:3. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. That's what it says. So fiat lux means let there be light, right? Let there be light. So just to give you a short lesson in Latin, fiat just means let there be. And when we say fiat money, it's let there be money, right? It's nothing that anyone's worked for. It's something that is created into existence by decree. So in English, when we say fiat, we really mean by decree. It's done without any sort of work. It's just sort of made to be by saying so, rather than thing actually being done. So really what we're talking about is creation by decree. And this is the mentality that I think we should all be against. So when I say fiat delenda est, I'm using Latin words, but as in Latin, it doesn't make any sense, right? Fiat is a verb in Latin, but it's an adjective or a noun in English, and that's how I'm using it. It means that we need to get rid of this mentality. And what does this mentality entail? Well, actual mentality entails is this illusion that things will happen by just decreeing it so. I can say, let there be pizza, but a pizza is not going to magically appear. I have to actually do work to make a pizza appear. I have to go get some dough and some tomato sauce and cheese or whatever. That's how you create things. You need actual work. The people in power have this idea that, I could just decree certain things to be so, and it'll just get done. But of course, that's not how reality works, right? The real question we have to ask is who or what actually make it so, right? When somebody in power says, let there be health care for everybody, or let there be security at airports or something like that. What does that actually entail? Who or what actually makes it so? The answer is that someone or something actually has to do the work. When someone thinks that they're doing something by decree, they're actually not doing anything. Really, they're having to get somebody else to do that work. I can say, let there be pizza, and as long as Domino's is going to do that, they can get me the pizza. But it doesn't just happen magically by my declaring it so. My declaring it so has really nothing to do with the actual making of the pizza. The making of the pizza is done entirely by somebody else. So really, when someone in authority, creates something by fiat, what actually happens is that they force other people to do something. It always requires some kind of force or violence in order for that decree to come true. Now, the problem with mandates or decrees is that they tend to be pretty unpopular, right? They don't go over well with the population. So if you have any sort of conscription, people will not like that. Like if you force military service or something to that effect, it doesn't generally go over well. And if you sort of decree something to be yours when it's not, that also doesn't go over well, right? Eminent domain or whatever. And this is the big difference between how the Soviet Union post-World War II and the United States post-World War II handled things. Because the Soviets decided, well, we're going to decree everything, and we're going to make these people do it. So when they said, okay, well, you're not going to obey us when we say, go build this thing, then we're going to send you to the gulag, right, and make you do all sorts of other things. That doesn't go over very well. It's also very expensive, right? Because you have to force a lot of people. You have to have an enormous police state of people watching and doing things. So fiat money was the alternative. This is the path that the United States took. It's using money, decreed money, to create things or create things. And that was done through soft mandates, and that was done through money printing. And the perniciousness of fiat money is that it gives this veneer of market forces acting, because you get monetary compensation. But of course, we all know that it's all theft. It makes it seem like you're doing things because you want to do them, because the government will pay you. So they want you to do, to provide health care for everybody. Well, we'll pay the doctors, a fair wage to do that. Well, where is that money coming from? What's coming from inflation? So it's really coming from us. It's done through theft. So instead of forcing you to do something like the Soviet Union did, they do it through money printing. And honestly, it's a brilliant plan, right? Because we have no idea that we're being manipulated in this way because it's done through theft. What happened here? I think I just did. Oh, all right, there we go. Instead of demanding someone do something, instead of putting a point of a gun at somebody and saying, you have to do X, Y, or Z, the United States printed money and said, we'll pay you for it, right? And you can go buy all sorts of things. Of course, what we're not privy to is the fact that everything is being diluted at the same time. So it's subtle, but it's the same type of authoritarianism. And this is the problem with fiat money. It centralizes power because the theft is very subtle and not obvious at all. Henry Ford said that if people knew how the money actually worked, there would be riots tomorrow. Fact of the matter is, very few people understand how money actually works, how it comes into existence. And the theft is hidden from us. And it's in their interest to hide it from us. They're stealing from our pockets all the time through inflation. But we don't know it because they're not actually taking the dollars out of our wallet. They're not taxing us explicitly. Instead, they do it implicitly. And we have no idea that it's happening most of the time. And we still have this mentality that, oh, you know, like it's my money and it's not, you know, I can do whatever I want with it. Actually, it's their money and they're able to dilute it whenever they want. And the result is just as centralized as the Soviet Union, because you have this sort of gentle authoritarianism. It makes it feel like you're still voluntarily doing something when, in fact, you're doing whatever they want you to do. They use money as an incentive, money that they stole from the rest of us. And in that sense, it's a soft form of slavery. I would characterize the Soviet Union as like a very hard form of slavery. You go do this or we will kill you. You do this or we will send you to the gulag. With fiat money, you have a much gentler form of it. We will steal from everybody and we will pay you to do what we want you to do. And that's unfortunately been the way in which they've centralized power. And that leads to anti-civilization incentives. Cheating and theft become widespread. I had a friend a while back that was telling me about how, you know, when he was in high school, he figured out a way to manipulate the grades. See, he was pretty good with computers, and the teachers trusted him and let him into like the closed system where you can enter the grades and so on. And he figured out, okay, well, if I do this, this, and this, I can manipulate my own grades to get straight A's. So he didn't study. He gave himself A's. And of course, he couldn't keep it to himself. He started telling his friends, and they were like, oh, could you do this for me? I really need an A in just this one class. And I think he charged like $20 per like grade change or something like that. And you know, soon, you know, other people found out about it. He had like this business, and he was able to manipulate their grades. And you know, a cute girl would come over, and he'd be like, "Yeah, I can do that for you, sure." And eventually, he had this kind of like empire going on, like changing the grades of people. And of course, he got caught. The thing about cheating is, you know, it's great while it's going, but eventually you get caught. And think about the grades that he got. He got A's for, like, just by manipulating something. He didn't do any of the homework. He didn't take any of the tests, but he still got A's. Of course, people are going to go towards that because it's much easier than actually studying and doing the work. And in that sense, fiat money is sort of like this cheat code for civilization. There are people that don't have to do nearly as much work that make tons of money. We call them rent seekers because they're able to manipulate things in their favor. And think about what an investment banker does and how much money they make, right? They're like, you know, leveraging 100x on some foreign exchange market and making, you know, $100 million a year. Do you think they actually provide $100 million of value to the market? I don't think so. And guess what? The last 50 years, where have the best and the brightest people in the world been going? They're not building rockets to Mars. They're going into investment banking because that's where the incentives are. An anti-civilization incentive. Instead of building up civilization, they're tearing it down by taxing every transaction. And that's where the smartest, the brightest, the most ambitious people go because of this hole. But like my friend where he got caught and then the whole system collapsed, that's what we're leading to when you have all of this cheating, all of this non-value add stuff going. Because that bureaucracy grows like cancer, right? That rent-seeking grows like cancer, and it destroys civilization. It rots it from within. And that leads to this, a ubiquity of politics. And what do I mean by that? Well, rent-seeking positions are generally political, and everyone wants one. Who wouldn't want one? You don't have to do that much work, and you get paid a lot of money. Those are some powerful incentives. to go and get rent-seeking jobs. And there's also an obligation for the power to do something about absolutely any kind of suffering. Hey, I don't have enough health, so you need to provide it for me because you can. There's this illusion that just printing money will solve any problem because they think reality can be created by decree, because they think in fiat terms. And that means that if there's any kind of, the more that you seem to be suffering, the more power you have politically. And it's not a coincidence that we have this victimhood mentality proliferating. The more of a victim you seem, the more subsidization you get from the government. And that, of course, leads to people pretending that they've been suffering when they really haven't, right? We have all sorts of microaggressions or whatever. These are all ways to make yourself out to be the victim so you can get compensated by the fiat system. And it's not at all about truth. And reality gets distorted. And we get all kinds of new victimhood classes that didn't exist before. And ultimately, politics penetrates absolutely everything. Because that's how you are in a fiat mentality. You think that reality is done by decree, by enough people saying that such and such thing is, rather than reality dictating those things. If we say we can have enough energy by, using green machines or whatever, then that's just going to be so. Of course, reality is slapping that down hard. If you don't believe me, just look at the gas prices in Europe. Fiat must be destroyed. It is our sworn enemy as Bitcoiners. It is our sworn enemy because they are antithetical to everything. Fiat stands for enslavement. It's a soft form of enslavement, especially with fiat money, but it's enslavement nonetheless. They are able to steal from us and take our value. Fiat causes destruction. It is anti-civilization. It is taking all of that which was built over millennia and using that to enrich the few and the powerful. And it is based on lies. It's all a lie. It's all a lie based on this idea that you can create something out of nothing without doing any work. Bitcoin is about freedom. It is about the ability to let the market decide what they want. And that leads to building. It allows people to build things that enhance civilization, that enhance each and every life through trade, through markets. And it is based on truth. We don't have to come up with new victim classes or weird things politically. We just do what the market wants, right? We provide what the market wants. And it's not manipulating reality or wishing that it were different and pretending that something is true when it's not. That's in the realm of politics. So what does it mean to destroy fiat? How can we, as Bitcoiners, make this happen? I've given this some thought, and I think it starts with destroying the entitlement mentality. That is a very fiat mentality. Because think about what an entitlement is. It's this idea that you can get something and that you're entitled to it by decreeing it so. It doesn't think about the other side of the equation. Who's actually providing this entitlement? If you're entitled to your own health care, somebody has to provide that health care. How do you get that person to provide you that health care? Well, in a fiat monetary system, you just print more money and pay the doctors. But really, you're just stealing from everyone else and paying the doctors to provide this for somebody else. It's authoritarian at its core. Entitlement mentality is toxic, not Bitcoin maximalism. Entitlement mentality is toxic. Second, we need to punish rent seeking. We need to punish rent seeking. We need to make this shameful. The unfortunate reality is that people like Warren Buffett get a lot of praise. A lot of people have a tremendous amount of respect for people like Warren Buffett. Think about what he's done. Put some insurance companies together. He invested in some bank stocks, used fiat subsidies of one kind or another. Did he actually build anything? Did he actually invent anything? No. They just respect him because he's able to play the fiat game. He's like the chief rent seeker. Why do we respect him? We need to make these people feel shameful. We need to expose their rent seeking and show how much they've stolen from everyone else. VCs, for example, are obsessed with value capture. That's just another word for taxing a transaction or being a rent seeker. We need to focus instead on value creation. Who's providing the value? If you're not providing the value and capturing some of the value still, you're a rent seeker. And you need to be mocked. You need to be made to feel like an idiot for doing that. We need to punish rent seeking. Finally, we need to make truth great again. We live in a society full of a lot of polite lies. And you guys know what I'm talking about. You've been paying attention the last 20 years. We need to focus on the truth. And we need to knock down any lies that people say and just say, what are you talking about? Now, this is very difficult to do if you're still in the fiat monetary system because, honestly, it's very political. Many of you are probably thinking, well, I could say the truth, but I'd probably get fired. And it's true. It's because you're in the fiat monetary system. You're still in that fiat mindset. And they can fire you. And this is the power that they have. This is a soft authoritarianism. And it's always been there. So how do you get out of it? Well, you need to become entrepreneurs. You need to work for yourself. And you need to not have a boss. You need to let the market be your boss. Because that's the truth. It's going to be hard competing against the fiat subsidized companies that exist out there. But this is the step that we have to take with Bitcoiners. We have truth on our side. And we have the inevitability of Bitcoin on our side. I'm not going to say that this road is going to be easy. You're going to be persecuted. There are going to be a lot of people telling you that you're a bigot or that you're privileged or something like that. But if you do this, we'll make a great civilization. And we'll prevent the theft that perpetuates this fiat mentality. Thank you very much. All right, so we have some time for Q&A. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work. Does somebody have a mic or something? Oh, okay. All right, so please line up and yeah, please come up and ask me whatever question you want.
Check. Hi there, thanks so much. My question is, it's obvious why the rent seekers love the fiat system, but why do the average people who get screwed over by this, why do they love it so much? It's like when you talk about Bitcoin, many people, they just like argue for the system that's screwing them over.
Yeah, it's a great question. My personal feeling is that it gives them comfort. And we kind of saw this during the pandemic. You know, a lot of people find comfort in thinking that the authorities have all the answers. In thinking that, okay, they know, you know, however bad reality might be, at least they know how to deal with it. It gives them some bounds on, you know, how bad things can get or something like that. So for them to trust somebody else with the decisions and not take personal responsibility is very comforting. But as you can see, it's really being a slave to somebody else, and that's you know, for us, we value personal sovereignty and not being a slave very seriously, and that's something that we would prefer. But for a lot of people, they'd rather be comfortable. They'd rather you know, go with the devil that they know than the devil that they don't know. So that's sort of their mentality, and it's really hard to kick them out of that unless things get really bad.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, Jimmy. We've never talked about this before, right? But I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there. One of the things you said that I thought was great was that we need to make truth great again, but it's not going to be an easy road. So how would you advise people on taking the hard, lonely road and working together to make truth great again and to focus on value creation? Because it seems like sometimes that tough road, you don't know when the end of it is, right? So how do we work together as a community there?
Yeah, certainly being at conferences like this, hopefully, where you can have beefsteak dinners or whatever, and talking about sort of strategies around this is very beneficial. But the thing that I would encourage you to add to your arsenal is this virtue of courage. You're not going to be able to do anything difficult unless you have the ability to go into fearful, difficult situations. And unfortunately, that's the one thing that's really lacking in society today. And you can see it, like during the pandemic, how much fear was there. It's almost like people were indulging in fear porn. Oh, okay, these people are dying, these people are dying. They wanted that to happen. So I would say that, you know, upping your courage, and that means doing things that make you uncomfortable. And you know, that's not necessarily easy, especially if you're at your fiat job, but you know, you got to be willing to stand for something. And that means you have to go back to your values. What are the values? What would you take a bullet for? Ask yourself that question and answer it. What would you take a bullet for? What is your life worth to you? Do you have anything that you want to stand for? Because if it's only your life that you care about, then you're going to be like one of those people that, like, you know, stayed home during the pandemic. And they, believe me, they can scare you. That wasn't the worst. So I would say work on your courage, figure out your values.
Hey.
All right.
Last one?
Last question.
All right. So when you talk about the rent-seeking of Warren Buffett, I think it was his partner, Munger, that said that Bitcoin is rat poison. So I think we all just need to call it for what it is, and that they are the rats. It is rat poison. They're the rats. I forget who said that first, but it definitely wasn't attributed to me. But
yeah, that's awesome.
And then so leaving the dinner last night, you know, just excited about Bitcoin and get into the Uber to go back to the hotel, and the guy is asking where we're coming from, and it's a Bitcoin conference, and he gets all excited, and he starts talking about shitcoins, Doge and Solana, and I want to like tell him. Basically, my question is, what is the elevator pitch to a normie who obviously is intellectually curious into you know, the bastardization of money, but I just said the 21 million, but just kind of your 2 cents on that.
Yeah, your you're talking about another book that I really want to write, which is Bitcoin, not shitcoin, something like that. But the elevator pitch would be, well, altcoins are really no different than fiat. All of the things I said about fiat, absolutely true of altcoins. The difference is that Bitcoin is decentralized. That's the key property. All of the things that I said about fiat apply exactly to all. That's why we need to get the message out that altcoins are no different, right? Like, and all these affinity scammers that have come into our space trying to confuse the issue, saying, oh, Stacks is built on Bitcoin or something like that. You need to shoot them down. Make truth great again. Let them know, hey, no, that's still an altcoin. You still have a token. You're making things out of nothing. You're creating by decree. Fiat Delenda est. Anyway, thank you very much.